I'm Olivia, a 28-year-old woman from Seaside, Oregon, struggling with the specter of a betrayal of my own making. My husband, Ethan, works long shifts at a lumber mill in the next town over, leaving me alone for days on end in our small, suffocating apartment. We've been married for 2 years, but the cracks in our relationship have been widening with each passing day. It started with little things: Ethan's late-night browsing of adult sites, the flirtatious texts from his coworker that I stumbled upon. I tried to bury my suspicions, but they gnawed at me, eating away at my already fragile mental state. I found solace in therapy sessions, pouring out my insecurities and battles with depression, but the emptiness inside me only grew. Everything changed when I broke my ankle in a freak accident at the grocery store. Unable to care for myself and with Ethan tied to his job, we had no choice but to temporarily move in with his parents, Frank and Diane. From the moment I hobbled through their front door, I could sense the tension that hung thick in the air. Silent quarrels echoed everywhere, and an uncomfortable atmosphere settled over the house. Ethan had warned me about his father's reputation as a womanizer in his younger years. Seeing Frank now, a man in his 50s with a commanding presence and a rugged charm, I could easily imagine the trail of broken hearts he'd left behind. But Ethan assured me that those days were long gone, that his father had reformed and settled into a quiet life with Diane. When Ethan returned to work, leaving me alone with his parents, Frank began to pay more attention to me. He would appear in my room, his brow furrowed with concern, asking how I was holding up. At first, I brushed off his visits as simple acts of kindness from a lonely man. But as the days wore on and my emotional state deteriorated, I found myself opening up to him in ways I never had with anyone else. One particularly difficult day, I poured out my frustrations to Frank, tears streaming down my face. He listened intently, his eyes filled with a tenderness I hadn't seen before. Then, in a gesture that caught me off guard, he pulled me into a hug and placed a gentle kiss on my shoulder. Confusion swirled within me, but starved for affection, I found myself craving more. Days later, everything shifted. Frank entered my room early in the morning, his presence electrifying the air. I pretended to be asleep, unsure of how to navigate the sudden tension that had risen between us. But he returned later, catching me awake and vulnerable. "Can I keep you company?" he asked, his voice low and serious, yet laced with a gentleness that drew me in. Against my better judgment, I nodded. He sat beside my bed, and we fell into a conversation that danced between the mundane and the intimate. As he shared his deepest fantasies, his words ignited a fire within me that I thought had long been extinguished. The proximity of his body, the intensity of his gaze, it all sparked a dangerous excitement I couldn't resist. Suddenly, he leaned in close, his breath hot against my skin. His hand trailed up my arm, leaving goosebumps in its wake. I sat frozen, my mind screaming for me to stop him, but my body betraying me with its yearning. In one swift motion, he tugged at the hem of my shorts, his intentions clear. I knew it was wrong, that I was betraying Ethan and Diane's trust in the worst possible way. But the thrill of the forbidden, the escape from the numbness that had consumed me, it was too tempting to resist. As Frank's lips met mine, I surrendered to the madness, fully aware that I was playing a dangerous game. In the days that followed, our secret encounters became more frequent, each one marked by a feverish intensity. The air crackled with tension whenever Diane left the house, and we would find ourselves tangled in a web of passion and deceit. I knew I was risking everything, but the allure of feeling alive again, even in such a twisted way, was too strong to resist. One day, while Frank was out in the garden and Diane had gone to visit a friend, I found myself alone with my thoughts. The weight of my actions pressed down on me, suffocating me with guilt. I knew I had to end this dangerous liaison before it destroyed everything I held dear. As if on cue, Diane returned home earlier than expected. I was in the living room, my heart racing as Frank entered with a mischievous grin, unaware that his wife had just walked through the door. He approached me with a boldness that sent shivers down my spine, but before he could reach me, Diane stepped into the room. The look on her face shifted from surprise to suspicion as she watched her husband jerk away from me. An uncomfortable silence settled over us, broken only by the pounding of my own heart. Diane's eyes darted between us, searching for answers I couldn't provide. From that moment on, everything changed. Diane's demeanor toward me grew colder, her gaze filled with a mixture of hurt and anger. She began to keep a closer eye on us, her presence a constant reminder of the betrayal I had committed. One afternoon, while Frank was out, Diane sat me down, her eyes boring into mine. "Olivia, there's something you should know about my husband," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "He has a history of letting his impulses get the best of him. I've had my suspicions before, but I never thought he would." She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. I felt the color drain from my face as the realization of what she was implying hit me. "Diane, I'm so sorry," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the lump in my throat. She looked at me with a mixture of disappointment and pity. "I don't want this to destroy our family," she said firmly. "But I can't allow this to continue. You need to leave, Olivia. I'll make up an excuse for your departure, but I ask that you never contact Ethan again. What you've done has not only hurt me but has shattered his trust in you." I nodded, tears streaming down my face as the weight of my mistakes crashed down on me. I gathered my belongings, each item a painful reminder of the life I was leaving behind. As I stepped out of the house, I took one last glance at the place that had once been my sanctuary, now tainted by my own selfish actions. In the months that followed, I learned the true cost of my betrayal. Ethan had been devastated by my sudden disappearance, believing the lie that I had run off with a wealthy businessman. The thought of him suffering, unaware of the real reason behind my departure, haunted me every waking moment. I found myself living in a small, dingy apartment, far from the life I had once known. Each day was a struggle to come to terms with the choices I had made, to find a way to atone for the pain I had caused. I threw myself into work, desperate to keep my mind occupied and away from the memories that threatened to consume me. But even as I tried to move forward, the ghost of my past lingered, a constant reminder of the destruction I had left in my wake. I knew that I could never truly escape the consequences of my actions, that I would carry the burden of my betrayal with me for the rest of my life. And so, here I am, a woman haunted by her own mistakes, forever seeking redemption for the hearts I have broken and the trust I have shattered. My story is one of regret, of the devastating impact of a moment's weakness. It is a cautionary tale, a reminder that the choices we make can have far-reaching consequences, forever altering the course of our lives and the lives of those we love.